Welcome to Raging Bullets, a comics fan podcast, episode 754. We tackle the Batman First Night.
From the sleepy suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio, there are assembled the world's two greatest podcast hosts, created from the cosmic legends of the universe. Sean Whalen.
Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast. I'm a big fan of variant colors. My love for Batman is that stuff. Let's talk some comics.
And Jim Segulin.
How's it going, eh? You know me and Superman. I'm really loving what we're doing. Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast.
Their mission, to discuss DC comics in books, movies, and television several times a month in 1 to 3 hour episodes. And to serve all mankind.
Outstanding.
Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of the Sultan of Strategery, star of the soon-to-be-released Black Label, the Bridgeman Nightlight, and of course the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to be doing the first of a two-part look at the 3-issue prestige format series, The Batman First Night. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Can you tell us, please, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
We have Batman Beyond, The White Knight, the deluxe edition hardcover, 50% off, $24.99, and Batman Full Moon hardcover, 50% off, only $14.99. Thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, they always have their deals of the week. They have DC's finest, Supergirl, the Girl of Steel trade paperback, $39.99 regularly, 55% off, only $17.99. Spawn, Salmon Twitch Origins hardcover book 2, $29.99, 50% off, only $14.99. Spy Cross Family graphic novel, volume 13, $11.99, 40% off, only $7.19. Swamp Thing by Mark Millar and Phil Hester, $125 regularly, 50% off, only $62.50. And two different versions of X-Men Road to Onslaught Omnibus hardcover, $125 regularly, 46% off, only $67.50. Thank you, DCB Service and InStockTrades.com, for continuing to support our show. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So if you ever read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Without further ado, let's talk some comics.
Nice work, Atom. What are these characters up to?
Our discussion this episode is going to begin with The Batman First Night, written by Dan Jurgens, art and cover by Mike Perkins, colors by Mike Spicer, letters by Simon Boland, the variant cover by Ramon Perez, pulp novel variant cover by Mark Aspinall, the 125 variant cover by Jacob Phillips, Batman, of course, created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger, the editor is Matt Levine, the group editor is Chris Conroy. And shout-outs to everybody involved with the creation of this. It was funny leading into this because I'm enjoying that Gotham by Gaslight, the Kryptonian Age.
Yeah.
I went back and reread the original Gotham by Gaslight. I have that deluxe edition that not only contains Gotham by Gaslight, but other like sequel-ish type material that came afterwards. And just really enjoyed revisiting that because that's kind of it was during that era of the genesis of Elseworlds, this idea of creating stories like this one that we're here right now. This was a listener recommendation saying, hey, you guys should do this one. And I'm so thrilled that it was requested because it kind of bumped it up my list as far as to reads because I've got so much backpile. And this is fantastic. It's really, really good. So what was your take? Did you read, were you reading, was this on your radar as something you were reading before this? Or was it the fact that we were going to do it on the show that got it back on your radar? What got this one going for you?
I'll be honest, I completely missed it. 100%. It was not even anything I knew of. For whatever reason, it slipped past me. And it's so when you mentioned him like First Night, and I was thinking that it was back like the night one that was going on. I'm like, oh, okay. Then like, oh no, wait, this is not anything like that. This is something completely different. Nice. So this was 100% off my radar. So The fact that, one, me, I love Elseworlds, Black Labels, whatever you want to call them. I love those.
Me too.
I just love these stories. And I love when you take we have such a stable character in Batman. We know who Batman is, but you put him in a different time period. Like you mentioned Gotham by Gaslight. That's one of the reasons I love Gotham by Gaslight so much, that he was in a dramatically different period, but he still was the Bat. And we've got a dramatically different period that I don't remember reading stories from this period. And this is a great period for TV, movies, stories, you name it. This is an absolute wonderful time, time in the world to create these tales in. So I'm loving the fact that we're going, we went there, and it's that same Bat we're used to, the same Bat we're comfortable with, but has 100% been customized, as well as the universe has been 100% customized to fit this time period. Because again, this is its own time zone. It's its own time. There's a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff is going on in the world, and it's it's one of those things with when a lot of times when I was younger, I would think of period piece. I would think of back in the olden days, ancient, old Europe, 15th century, 13th century, 12th, and that kind of time thing. No, this is a time period. This is the olden days now. This is the aftermath of the Roaring '20s. We're in the middle of the Great Depression. This is some great time to tell a story. So I'm 100% just absolutely thrilled on this. And again, story and artwork went hand in hand on this one. This is something that I love the story being told, but the artwork, it fits this so perfectly that I was like, this is how this story has to look. So kudos to the creation team, on this one, because this isn't just art, this isn't just story, this is both of them. Both would be wonderful on their own, but you put these two together, and this is, an absolutely brilliant story.
What happens with these Black Labels, and it's something that's traditional with DC in general when they do these prestige format, these special series, and the Black Label certainly has epitomized this. There's a different level of quality. And I think when it's happening, I love that comics have different delivery systems. I like that there's the monthly books that, you have a certain expectation that they're turned around, obviously, every month, which puts your creative teams on a time crunch. And sometimes you have to, and we've been fortunate enough to talk to creators along the way, sometimes you make choices as far as establishing shots, and then you do different things with the backgrounds. What's nice about books like these, I think they have a decent amount more lead time. They have to a certain extent because of the fact that each issue, is double sized, at least in its presentation. And I feel like you get a art quality that's just different because of the fact that the artist just has more time. And I think they know that this is intended to be something that's, a different level. And that's not knocking the monthly book. I'm a monthly delivery guy. I love the monthly fix. I'm always amazed at what creative teams are able to do in that quick turnaround time, if that makes any sense. It's always nice to see this as something different, just a different sort of take on it. These are masterpieces. This is a masterpiece in storytelling. I love the period of this. And I like that the establishment in the beginning is we are setting the stage for you being gradually led into this world. They do a wide shot of Gotham and slowly bring you in a lot more intimate, but they're setting the stage over what timeline this is. What has happened leading up to this? The Great War to end all wars, straight on through to where we are at the beginning of this, setting very much a very, very early stage. I expected to see an Alfred in this. And just because of the fact that, kind of like when you do these relaunches and things like that, you see that. It's going to seem very strange. I liked it more because we didn't.
I'll be honest with you. I agree with you. I was expecting to see Alfred. And then when we didn't get him, I started thinking they're planning for more series in this. You can tell they're 100% planning to do another part to this. And I'm wondering if in the other part, we're going to find out that Alfred, the reason he took off was because his country was being invaded. Mm-hmm. He, remember, he's Alfred the spy as well. So he was called back to duty to serve king and country. And that's what I think in my head. I'm thinking that they're planning for the future stories. They're planning for that's why Alfred left, because you go to the newspapers, when that first page, they got a bunch of real, stuff that actually happened in the real, with Hitler, Mussolini, Italy, Germany pact. But then you've got some personalized stuff just for, the DC universe, where they've got the master thief caught, Frenchie Blake finally in custody. You've got the Axis chemical accident, where questions surround the one guy's lethal plunge. Again, are they teasing a possible future of the Joker? Then again, you have the Daily Star, which we know is the Metropolis paper. So are they teasing a possible this universe could have a Superman? I don't know. So I love the fact that they had those newspapers. So for me, I'm thinking the creative team is planning for a part 2 and a part 3 maybe or something. I don't know. Maybe it's wishful thinking on my part.
Well, some of that's also world building, though, right? Yeah. I'm not, and this isn't me disagreeing with you. I'm actually nodding at everything you're saying, but I'm adding to what you're saying. I think the first thing you've got to do is establish your first story, right?
Yeah.
So in establishing that, you want to start creating the rules of the world and expanding the idea of that this world exists. So those Easter eggs that are in there are meant to be there. Some of that is meant to be there because of you're establishing a time period in comics as well, like pulling bits that would have been relevant during that time period. And I like that. Like you, though, I feel like they're crafting a world that obviously has many storytelling possibilities, depending on the success. It's always the success of this, right, that would drive that. I don't know how this... I didn't look at the sales numbers of this one. I will tell anybody listening to this, if you haven't read this, you need to. But I'm assuming because it's a Batman story and you've got such a high-quality creative team. And the reality of this is when they do these Black Label Batman stories, they're outstanding. I mean, there is an expectation of quality. Few and far between miss the mark as far as being a top-notch story. And that's something that I think when you're a creator and you walk into this, it's got to be a certain amount of pressure. As far as you've got to have that story, that one that you feel like this is Black Label worthy. In the past, it was this is Prestige format worthy. This is Elseworlds worthy. Elseworlds had the same kind of standing, right, of just being one step above. And that's the reason why so many of these stories have endured. I feel like this is going to be one of those. Just because every page turn, it's beautiful. This is a beautiful book. Even to like the stonework on the outside of the house, when you're pulling in the inside. And this is one of the villains of the piece, right? One of the leads they're kind of establishing here. Much of the world will burn, and the horrors that they're going to be unleashing. We're seeing an establishment here of a villain of the piece. And I like that some of it's... Did you watch the old serials, the Batman serials? Did you watch any of those?
I've seen a couple.
So, this some of this stuff is... I'm not saying that this is directly taking... It's taking... Because of the time period, there are parallels or elements that you would find in the serials, like even using the radios as a communication tool and things like that, that I found, really charming and connected to a certain extent of the time period, because those were done, closer to that time period. So I'm very comfortable seeing this time period. I really, really like this time period. I love the attention to detail because it is a fully realized world. Even like the glass. Look at the detail on the glass when it's being set on the table. I mean, you actually see the grooves and the etches in the glass. I really appreciate an artist that takes the time to do that kind of stuff, because you almost hear it going down on the table. The little clang that you hear from the glass. Yes. And it's really because of the fact that it's this three-dimensional. It's starting to live. It's starting to breathe this world. And I just really, really love that. The radio has a lot of fine details on it. And this was something that I really went through. I was looking at the whole room, from the fireplace to the details of that, in the background, to when you come into the foreground, you start seeing things like even the microphone has such fine details on it. That's stuff that it takes a lot of time. And I really realize now, for an artist, when you get to work on something like this, it's got to be... We've talked to artists before about when do you stop? You know what I mean? Because you can keep going and keep adding those details, and you have deadlines. Even this has, this had deadlines. What those were for this, I don't know. I'm assuming, like I said, much more expanded than you would have for your traditional monthly book. But still, you're still got at some point in time, you got to finish and turn this in. This has just so many details that I really appreciated in it.
Oh, God, yeah. And again, going along with just the artwork, because I've got my art read through that I do after, going through the series. So after I knew who the voice was, because I actually read all 3 issues. I didn't break it up, this time. I kept going. And so I know who, so going through my art read through, I knew who the voice was. And then going back and looking at how much detail they give and how much they hide in the shadows to prevent us from seeing it. That for me was just absolutely brilliant, because knowing who it is, I can see it. But, I'll be honest with you, it wasn't until the reveal that I actually knew that was the voice. So they did a brilliant job with showing, as he's talking, as he's drinking, you're looking at that glass. And again, that glass draws your attention because of the artwork. But, looking at his face, I could tell it's him now. But at the time, so again, brilliant job on artwork, on details. How much do you put in, how much you don't put in, and the coloring as well. They're doing a heavy shading on the coloring, heavy dark, kind of, it's that noir kind of thing. But I love how on the radio, it's got that pop of where the light is, so, where the dial is. So again, some brilliant stuff here, art choices.
Continuing the art choices, when they flip the page and you see the angry mob, who is, because this is an era where really, newspaper stories and things like that are your driving force. And the commissioner's trying to get on through. This is a Gotham who is dealing with an increased murder rate. And I love that you've got these restaurants and things that you would naturally, with the apartments above them, that are kind of fleshing out this world. That it was a piece that I really appreciated. Jim Gordon being in this, and this being this murder mystery. And I like that the police were like, they're joking around about the corpse. Yeah. I mean, some of that is a defense mechanism, because I could see that being a part of it. Like, how do you mentally survive seeing horrors like that? I think you've got to have a certain sense of humor. We all do that at work, as far as for stress reasons. You try to find things to deflect a little bit, or, some levity whenever possible. This is definitely a bit of gallows humor, as far as that piece.
But nothing to lose your head over, man. No. I love that line. I chuckle over that stuff,
yes.
And part of it could be these are corrupt cops. Part of it could, as you said, could be just the gallows humor, trying to deal with the fact that you're looking at somebody whose head was ripped off his body.
Yes.
There's a lot of different things this could be. But again, these pages, and it looks absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and I love the crime scene investigations when they do them in very good Batman stories that focuses on the detective. And when you get to see Jim Gordon be that good detective in those sequences and interviewing people, this is what shows that it's a dark world is when she walks into the room and he's basically saying, "You were with Hodges?" And she's like, "No, I'm not his wife." And I love that one of the police officers is like kind of needling her. And she's basically sitting there saying, like, "Listen, what's up with you? You're perfectly fine when you come in here for freebies." I was like, I really like the establishment that she's walked into a murder scene right now. She's as cool as can be during all of that, which establishes a lot about what kind of world this is and the fact that she works in it and survives in it. Because that's part of what she's doing in her role. She's trying to make her way through a Gotham that is very dark. And if you know how to navigate it, you can survive it. But that's what it is. It is survival. And she has to come at it from a very strong perspective in order to do it. There was something about that just rang very, very true to the time period that we're reading about here. This is really, really strong writing when every character who comes on the page is continuing this sense of danger. This is a dangerous world. People are surviving in it, but there's all kinds of negotiations that go on to maintain that survival. She realizes that she's dealing with the police in this, but she's navigating how to deal with the police and making them bend to her rules to a certain extent. And I really like the tete-a-tete between them, where it's a very strong conversation. The other two officers look very weak in comparison to her in this piece. Not so much with Jim Gordon, but Ruby definitely is an interesting and intriguing character in how she's played in all of this.
Well, and actually, going off of that, a lot of the female characters in this story, they've got moxie, and it's, that's something that all the females they're introducing into this universe, we've got an actress later on, and we've got a couple professional women, and all of them have strength of character. I think that's kind of interesting on how they're portraying she's a prostitute, and you could very easily play it down. You could mark it up, but they're like, no, they're saying, no, this is a strong woman who's doing what she needs to survive this world. And because again, during the Depression, almost impossible to find a job. It's almost, you did what you had to survive, and I do like, how they're showing her as well as, I want to say Trixie, but I don't think that was it. Later on, they present them as, as these strong characters. And I think that's kind of a neat way to look at it because, during this time, this was the kind of stuff going on. And again, further adding to how corrupt the police department is. Yeah. In that the cops are, other than Gordon, are not really doing their job. They don't care. They've got a job. They've got a paycheck. They're not going to do anything to rock the boat. They're just going to skate by, do what they need to keep that money coming in. So they're not going to put out an effort. And it fits, corrupt cops. It fits the time period because there was a lot of people who, the mindset, hey, I've got a job, was huge back then. My grandparents went through, the Depression, and there's many stories that have been told throughout the family about just how you survived it. They took their backyard and turned their entire backyard into a garden because they couldn't, you can't, it saves you money if you're growing it, and the neighborhood used to rally when it came time for somebody to get evicted. They would literally lock arms around the house and someone would run up and down the block gathering any kind of spare change anybody had to make a payment for that person. So back then, back when this was going on, man, there was some serious stuff people had to do to survive. So I love seeing that.
She talks about how this is bad for business and again, is pushing to Gordon, what are you going to do about this? And, he's getting it from all sides. And the logic makes sense to her. It's like, people are too afraid to come out. People are afraid to be in these type of environments. Why would they go there? Now all of a sudden you've added it's already secretive to go there. Now it's dangerous to go there. You're going to die. You can lose your head, literally lose your head. It's an interesting sort of piece. One thing we mentioned the art, like the pencil work and things like that. I do have to mention the color work, the tones, the shading, the ink work that went into this one, because atmosphere and mood in this is very noir, film noir. And it's something that I would love to see this on the big screen. I say this a lot as far as this is the kind of video game I like. I like atmospheric video games. I would love a Gotham video game set in this world. And I would want it to be an open world one where you run around and do stuff. A lot like I don't want it to be the Arkham. Take the Assassin's Creed engine or something like that and make a game with this. But it's got to be like this tone, this color, this environment. I want to run around in those shops. And I want to fight criminals in this world.
Yes.
Because it is so way cool.
Definitely, 100%. This was a good time period to, as I said, this was a great time period for stories. And also, to go along with your color comment, I completely agree. And I love how they choose the time to really do the spot of color. Yeah. When they're showing Trixie's face, you need 100% full color on that face. And again, it gives her something more of a pop. Whereas you look at like the cops, they've got more of the shade, more of the undershading, and it doesn't have the pop of color on there. And like a couple of scenes with Gordon, and when you flip the page, you get that first scene of Bruce standing outside his car. They really 100% put nice detail in the color, make it pop so it draws your eye. It's absolutely wonderful.
Bruce's vehicle, when he shows up, the Roadster that was there, I really loved that because it was a typical, when he's a millionaire, it would be the sports car of the time. It sets him apart, and it looks cool. There's something to be said for all of those pieces. Bruce's overall presentation, maintaining the whole, millionaire playboy
Yep.
piece over there that works because even the crowd behind him, Gotham's little Lord Fauntleroy, himself, it's Bruce Wayne. I really liked that those people behind the scenes were adding to, again, that atmosphere of who Bruce is. The driving gloves, the little details really, really worked.
Yeah, I know. And that was something I did catch as well on like my art read through. There's that one little bit right there really does add to the, it adds to the air that he's trying to put out. Of the millionaire playboy, this and that Mr. Silver Spoon born in his mouth. I loved how all that stuff, just little bits like that. And again, great sequence in that, we know Bruce is pumping Gordon for information because we know who Bruce is. But the way just the conversation went back and forth, you can 100% see why Gordon wouldn't realize his friend's pumping him for information. Because, again, it was great banter, a good, solid friendship between these two. So it's really a neat situation where, again, we always talk about how the relationship of Batman and Gordon being a great thing.
Yeah.
Right here we're seeing Bruce Wayne and Jim Gordon have a really good relationship as well. So that's something solid.
And Gordon's logic as far as that relationship, what he's trying to do, he recognizes Bruce as a smart guy. He's also recognizing that Bruce is a guy with means. He's recognizing Bruce's background and that, he can help out with some of this that's going on. Resources would be something that would greatly benefit Gordon. You could see that. I work in education, very much in the public sector. When there's opportunities where there's interested people who could be making donations or, helping out with resources that you don't have easy access to, those relationships are immensely invaluable. This is so real world in the way that relationship's playing out between the two of them. I get the friendship. And it's not that Gordon genuinely considers him a friend. Gordon genuinely sees the potential in Bruce. He recognizes that Bruce needs somebody to talk to him to perhaps get him more invested in that. And I think there's something, he recognizes also that Bruce cares about the city. So that's all outside of his Batman persona, what's going on with Bruce. But you get it, and you get why, this is why Bruce Wayne, when he's written well, flies under the radar. It's because of this kind of establishment in the story, and I really loved that. This totally made a ton of sense to me. So one of the things Gordon really starts thinking about is the trauma that this boy went through, and what does that do to him? It's on the surface, doesn't appear to be so bad, but what's going on the inside? And we see Bruce going to the other vehicle and pulling out from the back, what we know is the Batman costume, to our first establishment of this. There's murders going on here. Obviously, one of the targets would be the mayor, and he's talking to Gordon, and things start to happen. There is a mysterious visitor. There are noises going on there, and Gordon's in there. Listen, don't answer the door. It could be and he hears a scream, and he's like, "You have got to leave, Mayor." The pacing of this was absolutely brilliant. Because we know Batman's dressed up. I'm thinking Batman's going to get on the scene. We're both, thinking that piece, I'm sure, as we're reading it as readers. But when? At what stage? What state will the mayor be in when Batman gets there? Will he get there in time? I liked that there was always a sense of danger. And we do see the butler is done. The butler has been killed already in the process of trying to get to the mayor. Batman shows up on the scene. The Batman outfit. Tell me your thoughts on this variation on the Batman outfit.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I like it. And again, it's the throwback to the original design that we saw, back when Batman first came around. But there's still a little bit of modern tweaks to it, with the way the belt is and all that stuff. But Every time we get a variation on the back costume, I'm always like, yes. And especially because considering how this time period, because in a way, these ears are more bat-like than the costume that we really like. If you think about how a bat looks, their ears actually flare up like that. They flare out and up. Whereas when it's just the two little horns, that's really not exactly bat-like. So this kind of fits. And again, the entry that he's coming in, the big broad entry through that was a full page spread, absolutely brilliant. Again, 100% go full color, full pop, make you really, pay attention and notice it. I love this. Again, this, do I want this obviously for the full-time costume? No. But this works for this time period. This works for this piece. This works for him as this is, year one back, really. So I'm liking it.
Yeah, this is definitely a year one bat. I like that it doesn't feel like it has to be in continuity. You know what I mean? It's one of those black label stories that I don't know if this is on continuity or not, or how we're looking at this one, where it takes place. I don't need it because we're so far in the past. I know we've done that thing in DC where the heroes age at a slower pace as an explanation of why these heroes have been around for so long. I don't need this story to be in continuity. If it is, great. It came up recently, and I forget where. I was reading on some forum. The question was, is the cult, Batman the Cult, still in continuity? In my mind, I consider it in continuity. I think it depends on the writer and the story that they're writing, whether or not they want to use that. But it also doesn't matter. The Cult's just a great story. I take it in continuity because of Jason Todd. And I guess where I'll always take it in continuity is it so influenced how I was voting on Jason Todd that I consider it that. This is one of those stories that, yes, this very much could have happened in Batman's past. I don't care if it did or not. I'm very happy for this to be an Elseworlds world. I'm happy for it to be what you said earlier. We might get a few stories set in this. And I hope that's the case because I'm really, really enjoying. I feel like we're just getting the tip of the iceberg, exploring what's going on with this world.
Now, the thing that, again, 100% what you're saying. And again, for me, continuity, not continuity, I don't care. I'm getting a great story. And like I said, I want more in this universe. Yeah. I want more stories in this. But I'll tell you, the thing that really did throw me, throughout this whole sequence, one, I loved how when Gordon recognized that there was an immediately problem, don't answer the door.
Yes.
Gordon knew before any crash, before any screaming, before anything like that, Gordon knew. Because again, Gordon's a good cop. So, another check mark that we need to have, Gordon's a good cop. Then when you flip the page and you get your first view of the bad guys, that threw me because I was like, that ain't normal. That's supernatural. And that always, that was something that had me going, huh? Kind of thing. Just because, normally, I was 100% not expecting that. I don't know what I was really expecting because somebody got their head ripped off. But I was not thinking zombie supernatural kind of thing going on. So I thought that for me was something that was kind of neat. And then you get that one moment, and then you flip the page, and the bat comes in, and you're like, "Oh, okay, cool, we got some bat action." And the way they captured, again, the movement, the fighting, the combat, just a flat page, but you can still give it motion, is something that really just always impresses me. And you got a story that's kind of like noirish kind of feel to it. You could sometimes lose detail. They did not lose a drop of detail in this. They 100% had the you're real look of shock on the mayor's face. Just the zombie monster kind of thingies. Just kind of die. Kind of you can hear that that groaning kind of sound. I absolutely loved how they showed Bruce just duking it out as best as he could against them. It was absolutely brilliant on storytelling.
The piece that really, with the mayor, it was, you're real? And that gives you this idea of time frame of this, right? This is very early in Batman's career. He is, and it serves him well, this idea that Does he exist? Does he not? Is he a creature of the night? What is he? You know, that whole piece has always served Batman well. The combat that it leads to in this, I like that it was dirty. You know, we're dealing with these monsters that are clearly above human, and a Batman who is not used to dealing with combatants like on this level. This is like very, very different because they're super powered in what they're doing. But I like that it feels very Universal monsters in their superpowers, if I'm making any sense. Like it all fits the mood and tone of the era. That's really, really great. If I was thinking of something like sitting here, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be one of those things that the mayor dies, Batman's getting blamed. Because the one side of the conversation is, he's here, Gordon, him. You know, and he has wings, the Batman. I'm like sitting there, I'm like, if this dude dies right now, the main suspect's gonna be the Batman.
Yes. Dude, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
100% thinking the same thing. Going, oh no, Bat's gonna get blamed for this. So I'm so glad that they swerved us on that.
I love that.
That was brilliant.
Yes. And I'm with you on that. It was a swerve. It's brilliant writing because they were dangling me. I was following along. I was definitely chasing that carrot, assuming this was going to happen. And it kept engaging me much more in the energy of the story because it made me want to see Batman beat the villains even more, or at least survive. You know, and I wanted the mayor to survive, which sometimes when you're reading a superhero story, like I'm not invested in the mayor at all. You know, I kind of felt like he was, at least from the initial presentation of how we were being talked about, like the mayor's kind of a jerk anyway. So I wasn't really, you know, very protective of him, which is kind of a crazy thing to say. You know, it's kind of like you want Batman to save everybody. But on this end, I was still, you know, majorly focused on Batman. That made me very invested in the survival of said mayor. I wanted the mayor to survive. The piece where Batman was using things from utility belt to get the creature's attention, get them focused on him to, again, protect others, I thought was super cool because he recognized that other people could be killed, you know, in this process. And if he got them angry enough, they would come after him. I really liked the psychology used in all of that. It, again, was very heroic and continued this whole chase and this whole battle that was going there. I love Batman stories where Batman gets into a battle where, you know, Batman is incredibly skilled. He is a talented combatant. He has his own little weapons and pieces like that, but he's dealing with overwhelming odds. And the fight is brutal, and it's just this is like so what I love about street level Batman. Daredevil stories, really strong Daredevil stories have this as well, where you get this kind of idea of Batman survived this because of his skills and managed to keep people alive in what he did. That is a victory. Even though it wasn't the kind of victory that you normally would consider a victory. He was, you know, because he's left in an alley pretty beat up at the end of this. And I like that kind of stuff. It's grounded. And yet the guy's, you know, he's going to go out the next night and do the same stuff.
Yes. Yeah. And one of the things that did this fight sequence had me thinking, because we're so used to, you know, Bruce traveling the world and learning fighting techniques from all these various fighters and this and that. I don't know if this Bruce could have done that. You know, think back to the way the world is at this point in time. You're not traveling to Japan, you know, and they're not teaching you the ancient arts that they would never teach an outsider. You know, it's, you know, and also we've got a war coming up. So he's not going to Europe and traveling in Europe and, you know, doing that. It's this Bruce is learned to fight. Again, it's, as you said, street level fighting.
Yeah.
So this Bruce doesn't have the ninja skill set that our Bruce has, you know, and you see it in, you know, the fact that he gets his butt kicked, and you see it later on, you know, when he's getting down and dirty and when he's fighting, you know, and he barely gets away from this. If it wasn't for the rabbi, he'd be dead, you know, flat out, because those creatures were hunting him down. They were going to hunt him, find him, and kill him. That was all. They were a single mindset that we had to do this. The rabbi saved his life.
I loved the sequence with the rabbi because forget what religion you are, in this moment, because I'm not Jewish, but I feel like true holy men, true holy people, men, women, whatever, whatever your role is in your various religion. I feel like they're kind people, noble people, and they try to make the world a better place. And that's kind of their station and what they're trying to do. I think the people that are really committed and devoted are doing that, and I like that this story was about that. And I felt like the rabbi was a very likable character, a very brave character, because in that Gotham, with what he just saw, there's every reason for him to want to stay out of that. This is above and beyond what you would consider that a rabbi should be doing. He wouldn't agree with me. He would absolutely 100% say, no, this is exactly what I should be doing. Yeah. And I love that. I felt myself the character arguing with me.
Yes.
And that's kind of fun when this character starts to feel alive. It was such a bit that I didn't know I wanted in the comic, but when it's talking about the time period. He's talking about Hitler and, his worries about, Hitler wanting a pure America and things like that and how terrifying that is. I was reading this and I'm sitting here like, oh, wow, this is just like so cool and stuff that I didn't know I wanted in a Batman comic that I just really do. And, discussions about what's right. And I like it. He's been there saying, hey, if you need me again in the future, you just come on back here. Even if you just need to talk, because you got a lot going on, dude. And I might be the guy that you can talk to. And I really liked that he wasn't concerned with what Batman's religious background was or anything like that. It's like right now that this doesn't matter. What matters is that you need what I give. This is what I do. I believe in what I do and what I believe in so strongly that I am here for you. That to me is the symbol of what I think is a strong religious leader. Not matter your denomination or anything like that or what your background is. It's you're trying to share what you believe in such a way that you're making an impact. And I love that. I felt like whether or not Batman and him encounter each other again, I was just thinking about during this scene. I'm like, that guy made an impact on Batman. Yes. That was like such a cool, well-written scene. I thought it was an important one. It really, really worked in this.
I 100% agree with you. And I immediately was thinking this is going to be his version of Alfred.
Yeah, I could see that too.
100% was thinking this is going to be his confidant. I knew he was going to be coming back here again. The other person, Leslie Tompkins is another person, and this is that version of it.
Yep.
So I 100% was thinking, and everything is funny. Everything you were saying, I completely agree with you on. So, everything you said about what a religious leader should be like, this right here, they're capturing it. And they did a brilliant job with it. And the thing I also absolutely loved was, sometimes creation, they can go over the top with something, especially, and it's what I mean by over the top. I mean, it's like they're trying to portray whether it's portraying Jews, whether it's portraying homosexuals, whether it's portraying just any group out there, like, oh, we got to really hit it home. So they go too much into it, and you start when you're like a lot of times Independence Day, prime example of it. You have the great actor who was just playing the father, and he was just way over the top on the Jew side, and you're just like, dude, relax, calm down a little, like they had the one line in there when he's like Meshuggah, and they could have kept going on with the little lines. One thing had just gone. The actor Jackie Mason, how he's got that very very, very distinctive tone. A lot of people try to impersonate that tone.
Yeah.
They didn't do that here. They let him be who he is, and it was absolutely brilliant where they didn't do anything over the top on this. Everything in here was very street level, very grounded, very well, it was a brilliant documentation of who this guy is, and again, some of the comments I loved how he's throwing in there when he's first looking at the bat. He's like, hey, in Germany, the Gestapo wear the black leather. Here, it's the Klan who wear the masks. But those wings, you're the bat. And he's like assessing everything that's going on with who the bat is. And once again, he can recognize this is somebody who's here to help. And I think that for me was something that was also a really neat thing. It's like two kindred spirits looking at each other, going, okay, we're both here to help. We're both it's kind of like with Gordon. Gordon recognizes the bat is here to help. So again, I love these characterizations that we get in just a couple pages.
Yeah, it was something that I just really loved. When we go to Wayne Manor, talk about world establishment again. This is a different era, so you're not going to get the traditional bat cave like we're used to. These choices were things that I thought were really, really critical because they embraced the time period. They embraced the world that was here. I liked his lab and the way everything was set up. I like his version of the Batmobile. It's something I always liked in the serials, as far as how they handled what the Batmobile was and how Bruce handled things. This stuff was really, really cool. Him having to take care of and stitch up himself was something that I thought was really great. This is more like almost like a warehouse or a shed or a garage on the property, that is very hidden from sight. And the introduction of Sir Martin Brock and Miss Julie Madison. It's Julie Madison in particular, just because of her rich Batman history. It establishes more of this idea of the challenges Bruce has in dealing with his particular world, because of the fact that he's trying to be Batman at night. He's trying to be Bruce Wayne during the day. And we're dealing with the idea that their funding was cut because of all the craziness that's going on right now by his company, which you could sit there and go, I kind of get why, they were doing what they are. But Bruce being Bruce is, trying to get a handle on what's going on. And I love that they're telling Wayne, like, this is what you're going to do. This is probably the worst negotiating tactic. That they're walking in trying to bully this man into keeping the film going. And I love the fact that she's sitting there, show some moxie, pony up and get the cameras rolling and you'll be fine. And she bothered to stay and listen, she would know that's exactly what I told him to do. I love that Bruce was already on that. It was just so Bruce, right? But the interplay was really, really great in establishing Wayne Manor, what that's like. I like how they were commenting on the fact that he needed a maid or a butler or somebody to keep the place clean. Those little tiny details were showing what's missing from what we've had in the past and what that would look like. Because obviously the larger the home, the harder it is to keep up with. And I really, really liked that whole piece and that he values his privacy.
Big time. And again, it's funny. Everything you're saying, I'm like, yeah. And I loved the strength of the character. Again, she's got moxie. 100% stood toe to toe, did not even give him a chance to comment. Just kept throwing it out there. And I love the fact that she called out all of the imperfections where it's a little dirty. A Van Gogh hanging on the wall, but it's not even straightened. And again, little things that Alfred would have 100% made sure is always taken care of.
Yeah.
Bruce, so we got life without Alfred. And who knows, again, future stories where this is going to play out. And again, it's stuff like this was in my head. They're setting up for the next round. They're setting up for the next story.
They looked like Brock and Madison both looked like they were in the Hollywood scene. She especially, when she took off her hat, the hairstyle, the facial features, to the way she was made up, she looked like a starlet. Hollywood, classic Hollywood. We've been doing a lot on Is It Jaws of, classic movies as well as, more contemporary ones. But when you do the classics, you take a look at that. This very much had that feel. I love AMC and Turner Classic Movies, kind of seeing all the classics. Very, very much what you would see in a documentary, behind the scenes documentary about somebody, this type of stuff. So I just really love these kind of details. Just kept me engaged in this world. We're only at issue 1. And I mean, the amount of like incredible content in this is amazing. Every new entry in this, there's not a wasted page, and there's a lot of content available here. Every panel, though, like, they don't have any establishing panels. You know, those panels that sometimes don't have a lot going on in the background because of the fact that the artist just has to for time. I want to know what the lead time was on a book like this. Like, how much time did the artist have for this? Because I'm talking about the whole art team, actually, because, you know, I mean, how long did it take them to get to this? Because it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. But the details are something that I greatly appreciate because I know how hard it is. I know how hard it is with what the incredible details we get in a monthly book, much less something more prestige format like this. Whoa.
Yeah, again, you know, you look at his cave when Bruce goes back to work to pull the prints, the details there. Then you flip the page and we're back to another cityscape sequence.
Yeah.
You know, and just then showing Bruce doing the bat thing, you know, going through the city, you know. I'm like, this is some seriously, again, amazing artwork. We keep saying amazing, wonderful. We're throwing out all the same acronym over and over again, but I'll tell you, it's something that is really impressive for me. And I'm like, dang.
The exploration of the knife and getting the print and Bruce doing all of that work, it just shows his forensic work and his background in there. What I love, this is an era, there's no bat computer. There's not the ability for him to tap into police records the way that there was before. I like that he's like, I need help to find a match. And I enjoy the difference between that. It leads to one of my favorite scenes with Gordon, right? Because there's this cool thing about relationship building with the two of them. I thought this is we've seen a lot of different variations on how Bruce's relationship with Jim Gordon started. The Batman's relationship, I should say, with Jim Gordon started. This is somebody who Bruce already trusts. But Batman, in the Batman role, has to establish trust the other way around. I like that Gordon would be very tentative in how to work with him in these sequences. Everything about this played out right. He went to Gordon with this piece. You know, he's like, I need help. And he's trying to get the match for the fingerprint. I love Gordon's tentative nature on this one. It was something very, very different. Sometimes it's the other way around, you know, where you see Gordon, you know, trying to build that relationship with Batman. This was absolutely absolutely perfect in how it played out.
Oh, God, yeah. And I loved that Bruce is covering over his face.
Yes.
You know, with his hand or the cape and all that kind of stuff. Because, again, Gordon knows what Bruce Wayne looks like. Gordon's good friends with him. So you 100% got to think he's thinking, you know, we definitely have a Batman voice going on here. Yeah. I don't know what kind of voice this Batman's using, but there's no way he's speaking his regular voice because Gordon would recognize it in a heartbeat. You know, or maybe the Bruce Wayne voice is a little bit, he tweaks the Bruce Wayne voice. I don't know, but we definitely got something different going on here. But again, art choices on him covering over his face and sticking more to the shadows. Again, Gordon's very familiar with Bruce Wayne. He's got to conceal that identity. So I loved that stuff. And I did love how, you know, Gordon's on the phone. He doesn't call for help yet. He's like, convince me. You know, Gordon's already thinking that the bat's on his side.
Yeah.
But he, you know, again, he is still a good cop. He's an honest cop. So he's not just going to look the other way. This guy's got what has he got? What's going on here? You know, and again, I love just that the initial trust going on between them.
The piece that really stands out for me in that, you get this growing trust between the two of them, and you know it's like genuine when he's there. But even so, Bill, this isn't the red phone era. This isn't the bat signal.
Right.
How will I get in touch with you? You won't. I'll contact you. Just that whole piece and how it played out. The growing mystery of who these brutes are, though, is something that was really, really intriguing and shouldn't be thrown away because of what we discover about them. I mean, it's such a cool twist of this whole thing. As far as how they're being created. This is how you create a mystery in a story. This is an example of just everything that pulls me through a comic and makes me want to continue. There's a lot of TV shows can learn about the pacing of a really strong comic, and I think this is an example of no wasted scene from this one. It's something that I'm hoping. I've got the trade of this. I don't know if there was any scripts in there, but I'd love to see one, like what the script looked like in this. It's something interesting.
Oh God, yeah. This again, I'm loving just how they're building the characters, they're building the story, they're creating this universe for us. And you get this great Bruce and Batman and Gordon moment, and again you flip the page, and then we get Maxie, who I wasn't thinking would when they first introduced the guy, I'm thinking he's not going to be a big character. It's just this is just going to be some type of thug, some type of side thing. But again, completely swerve me, surprise me, and we get a great character out of this, and we get a great story getting played out.
Yeah, I also know the name of the place, Maxie's. Is that a take on Maxie Zeus?
I was thinking that as well. Especially the opening sequence here where we're introduced to Max. The guy that's beating on Tilly has a little bit of that Maxie Zeus, groove to him. So sure. I was kind of thinking that, but, we later learn it's, I don't think it is, it's Maxie is based off of his name and all that. So he kind of,
well, it says make you feel like a king. What is, so what is the, I don't know about. I think it's a wink and a nod.
Yeah,
but I think it's cool that they're. I don't know. We'll see as this story goes on if that's in fact the case. But I think it goes back to what you said about Daily Star and things like that. Will these be fleshed out in this particular series, or will it be fleshed out in future installments? I'm hoping we get the chance because this is Maxie right here. So I don't know.
And again, I liked the way the kid comes in strong. He takes care of his girls. He keeps them clean.
Yep.
I liked how you get a very strong on who this guy is. The guy is hurting one of the girls. He's hurting Tilly. He's hurting Tilly. So he's like, hey, nobody hurts my girls. Done. And he goes in there and he beats the crap out of the guy, and he's like, not only that, we're going to get all your money now. You're going to pay the price for hurting one of the girls. You smacked a girl around, guess what? You're going to pay for it. And I liked how they're playing, you see the strong moment, then his bodyguard comes in and is like, hey, he's waiting for you in the alley. Who? Oh, him. And again, I like seeing why Bruce is letting Maxie go. Why he's letting this happen.
Yeah.
It's very simple. Maxie runs a clean place. He takes care of his girls. No one roughs them up. They don't rob. They're Johns. Back in the day, there was a lot of nasty stuff going on. There's still a lot of nasty stuff going on in the sex trade. It's some horrible stuff going on. But I love the fact that this is a guy who's not doing that, and that's why Bruce is letting him around. And again, we see it.
Tilly's stand there is something that Tilly was very well written.
Yeah.
Because, again, you're putting yourself in the time period. She's recognizing just what a horrible world it is, and that, he is the best game in town. In a very, very dark trade, in a very, very dark world. And, she steps up to try and say, step up on his behalf because she knows the dangers. If Maxie's, taken down, her alternatives are horrid. It's just it's tragic. In those pieces, I liked how well written that was because it's everything you're saying it was. It's, you got to place yourself in the time period and go, woof. And I'm glad that they really wrote this as a period piece because, you sit there and I don't think by any stretch Maxie's a quote-unquote good guy, but he's one of the better guys in that realm. And it's an interesting sort of take of Gotham's underworld.
Right.
And that part's going to be, that's why Bruce has, or why Batman, I should say, has Maxie as one of the contacts that he will go to when he needs information. And I'm sure every one of those interactions is very much walking a fine line. And
you don't know exactly if the information is going to be clear or if it's going to be Is he giving it to him straight? Now, I do love the fact that Tilly was the one who stepped up to protect her boss.
Yep.
And again, showing another strong, female character who's in a very difficult situation, but hey, she's like, I'm surviving. And again, surviving is a huge thing going on. And I love seeing that. Just barely getting by, just making through, just surviving. Staying, just you got to keep moving, keep going. And I love that was her who gives the details about, where to go to and what's going on with that, with Johnny the Whip. And I do love the names, but, Johnny the Whip and talking about how everything's gravy, because he's got this zero risk, and he's got these big mooks doing the work for him, so he doesn't have to do anything. And I'm like, oh, man, this is awesome.
Batman realizes when Gordon tells him about the fingerprint that I love that he taps into the private police channel, which is so Bruce, right? But I like when he's talking to Gordon that he recognizes that because the fingerprint belongs to somebody who's deceased, these executions are the key. And I really like that. This whole bringing in Blackgate and the execution that's about to happen. Everything about that was just really well handled. Bruce is realizing that we've got police officers on the take. They're behind part of this. They're providing the source material for these monsters. And it leads to, I think, just one of the coolest. The fight was, again, another street level, gritty, brutal, not clean fight that leads to Batman winding up. And I just thought one of the coolest cliffhangers. Because everything about it is just, again, very brutal. And his costume, I think in that sequence, it shows as even more grounded in that era versus the more modern armor that we're used to kind of seeing, the materials that we're used to seeing people have access to today. This is much more a cloth suit covering up and protecting his identity versus being something that provides him protection the way that we're used to in some of the other bat suits. Oh God, yeah. And the capturing the combat when the lights go out and just showing, again, as you said, street level grunt, that bare knuckle brawling style of fighting. And when they strap him to the chair, that final page, the bat is gonna fry. I'm like, oh, that is awesome. Now, you sit there going, how does he survive that? But that is awesome luck. That, for me, was a great cliffhanger ending to an issue. This is how you end up an issue to get you going, I need to read the next one, please. I need to read it right now. Yeah, and that was something I think that's really important at the end, especially when you read something that's this much depth. You tend to feel that you're kind of need a break or something like that. I wanted to jump right into the next issue. And I also loved how they made the Warden really seem slimy here. Yes, yeah. They did a great groundwork on that this Warden is an absolute piece of filth. 100%. It reminded me back to Green Mile. And I can't think of the character's name, but the one prison guard who is just an absolute jerk. He reminded me completely of that guard from Green Mile. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. The covers are something we didn't really get a chance to talk about because I'm looking up the cover of book 2 because we're gonna talk about half of book 2 and then finish up the rest of book 2 and book 3 next episode. But as we're looking at the cover for book 2, I really like this cover design. You've got the white background with the Batman, and inside his cape, inside his whole shadowy figure is actually the artwork for what's going on in this particular issue. Leading in, I loved, the look of the Batmobile, and you get to kind of see a Julie Madison and a Thug and Gordon and one of the Monster Men. I loved everything about just the way that this was designed. It's a really cool, well put together cover design. The articles, when you kind of flip the page and take a look, that again set the pace and tone with the Gotham City Gazette and the Daily Star, as you were mentioning. Even the fact that they've got evening editions, which is something where, nowadays the newspaper industry has changed so much because of online access and 24/7 news and things like that. There isn't a morning and evening. I don't think, at least I can't think of any. If there are, it's few and far between. It used to be very common to have the daily and the evening edition of the news. This is a very different era.
Oh, God, yeah. And again, talking of the newspaper articles, they do, again, another one of the Gotham Gazettes is Alfred Stryker, who we found from the last episode, is the guy who fell into the vat.
Yeah.
He was in a fight with the mysterious Batman, plunges into the deadly vat of acid, claims his life. I'm like, dude, that's the Joker. That's the Joker. That's awesome. So again, if this story continues, we can very easily have a Joker there. And I love that. And, and I do love the little references to A Night of 1,000 Cuts and the reference of Julie Madison and Sir Martin Brock, arriving in Gotham. So they, again, absolutely brilliant on the usage of, these newspapers.
So we're seeing the electrocution of Batman and the reaction of the crowd. That isn't Myron. Who is that man? You see this shocking sequence. Gordon shows up on the scene and, stop, you're killing him. If it wasn't for the power grid going down, Batman would be toast.
Yeah.
And I really liked how that all played out. The very real danger of the situation. Bruce is hurt from this. And I really like that he's not ready to go. But when the escape happens, like when Bruce gets out of there, they take a look back. He recognizes he needs to get out of there. This is very much a Batman tactic. And this is how Batman protects his identity. By no matter what his condition is, I need to get away. Batman Begins handled this very, very well. Remember when he got the scarecrow poisoning and all that kind of stuff, and he went through that whole sequence? I thought it was very much like this, where he was battered and needed to call in Alfred and needed to he needed to get somewhere where he could be safe, so that way the identity was protected. This was every bit about that. I like when he's battle. I mean, you can actually see the charred elements of the bat suit. He's smoking as he's walking in there. I mean, that was a really good special effect detail put together by the art team. He is smoking as he's going down the hallway.
And one of the things that also going along with the electric chair, the old Sparky, one of the things they used to always have to do is you have to soak a rag or soak a sponge and have it wet on the head, and you put the transistor there. That way it's a good conductor going through it.
Yeah.
Bruce didn't have that on him. He just put the transistors on him. So, again, he didn't get the full jolt. It would have been a slow burn like this. Now, granted, if Gordon hadn't flipped the switch, he would have died. So they needed Gordon to flip the switch. But, again, little extra stuff in there. I was like, he could actually survive this. This is, kind of reasonable.
It's terrible. When I go to visit your house, you're always giving me a wet towel and offering me to sit down, and I don't take you up on it ever. Now I know why. This whole sequence, though, again, Bruce is escaping, and I like that this was dirty. It's something that was a reoccurring theme in this, because he's hurt and battered. The escape, even when he falls into the vehicle. Because this was just a very narrow escape. And it did remind me of what I loved about Batman Begins. He's still smoking as he's sliding into the driver's seat to get out of there with that vehicle. Because it is, again, just a narrow escape to try and get himself somewhere where he can hopefully survive all of this. And that was something that I really loved as Gordon's investigating what's going on behind the scenes. Because he realizes Batman stumbled onto this corruption. And when you're dealing with a force, a police force, that you are leading, that has this level of corruption, it's something I've always loved about the strength of Gordon. It's trying to navigate that very, very dangerous world and stay alive himself. Because that has got to be a very, very tentative relationship. And it was something that this built that sense of danger, not just to Batman as far as what he went through, But to Gordon, even following up on it, there's a danger to him. And I really liked that feel from this.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I liked Gordon's reason why he saved the bat.
Yes.
Because he's like, the guy was never tried.
Yep.
You can't just execute somebody. That's murder. So you should be thanking me for saving you from going to jail and getting your own electric chair. I love that.
Yep. Yeah, and that's something that I thought was really, really well handled in this. Interesting part is even in that relationship where they're saying that, if you're trying to set me up and frame me for something to take the heat off of your own incompetence, I really liked the defensiveness of what was going on in all of this because I felt that was very natural and very, very real too. Seeing what Bruce was going through, even when he gets home, I like the after effects of this on Bruce. Just because there's a reality to what Batman does to a normal human being. He's doing everything he can to try and, soak, kind of get this away, get himself back to at least some level of being able to operate normally. And I really like that this played into a later interaction, which we'll get to, with Julie Madison. Yeah. There was, that piece was something that was really important. I almost forgot about the voice on the box.
Yeah.
Until that sequence came back in, because so much has been going on here. And that's really a compliment to the story that there's so many layers to this. I'm like, oh yeah, the voice in the box. That was like established right in the beginning. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing here too. I know it's all connected, but I completely forgot about that in light of everything else that's been going on.
And again, and I love how, because I'm with you, but I love how it brings you back and then gets you thinking, oh yeah. And immediately, first person, I don't know about you, but when this played out right here and now, my first thought was the Warden. I was like, it's got to be the Warden. The voice has to be the Warden.
Oh.
Because again, the way they played it out perfectly, because now the voice wasn't after the bat at all. Now he is. I'm like,
okay.
Oh, that's got to be the Warden. And I love how they played that, getting me thinking that because it was perfect timing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't thinking that at all. Interesting point. Continuing story, especially when Gordon, back at his office is starting to analyze what's going on. Depression, monster men, and rampant crime, all backed up by war drums in the distance. Is it too much to ask to get my car back? Jim does have a lot going on in that sequence of events. When Julie Madison shows up at Bruce's house, This was one of my favorite sequences because she's shown up, again, she's trying to follow up on the whole sequence, and she walks, she's walking into the man's house all the way up to the bedroom.
Yes.
It does show that this man lives alone. It's also a wonder that, this is why he has to keep his bat stuff in the bat shed. Yes. Which I'm assuming is locked, but that thing had a lot of windows. So I've got all kinds of questions about the bat shed.
Well, I'm like, Bruce, you need to lock your front door.
No,
because that door was unlocked. Because she's not a master thief who can pick a lock.
No.
She just turned the handle and walked in,
But she was really great as far as that piece goes because he had to create his story. I like that he's sitting here, said there's a short in the fuse box, that I could take care of it on my own. And she's like, sitting here, you're loaded. Why wouldn't you hire an electrician? He's like, live and learn. I love that he's explaining, the equipment on his back wound up being a conductor and stuff like that. I mean, that was some tap dancing.
Oh, God, yeah. That was absolutely brilliant. And again, it's funny. Why would she buy it? Well, okay. Gave her an answer. Oh, okay. She just moves on. And it was one of those neat things. I loved this. It didn't make me feel, look any less of her.
No.
Because she believed it. It's kind of like the whole, why doesn't Lois, before Lois knew the secret, why couldn't she recognize that it was Clark Kent? Well, he did multiple things. This right here, Bruce is laying down the line. He's being Bruce Wayne. How you doing? Yeah. I love that.
Her focus there makes sense, too. She's there to do damage control.
Yeah.
Here's what she's recognized, and clearly quickly, that timing-wise, she had to recognize afterwards that he'd already taken care of this. When the news came out, whatever, however she found out that like funding was back on, she had to have realized that like he had already taken care of this on the phone call. He didn't need the poking that she gave. So now she's recognizing we got an ally here. So her purpose for being there just makes a ton of sense. She's like, oh, listen, this guy's our backer, and he's already had our back on this. We really were harsh on this. Maybe we better not bite the hand that feeds us. There is such a political piece to what she's doing right now that felt so real world. She's like, I got to go back and kind of apologize from all this. The interactions between them, we see in comics the relationship between Bruce and Julie Madison. It's one of the famous ones, of as many relationships that's out there. Sometimes they're very quickly, like, she's just kind of the arm candy that like is with him because he happens to be millionaire Bruce Wayne. I loved this sequence when they're in the kitchen, this gigantic kitchen with the guy who lives there by himself. I really liked that in that sequence, there's that intimacy that you got. One of my favorite sequences in Michael Keaton's Batman movie was when they were at that long table. Kim Basinger and Michael Keaton were at the long table. And she's like, do you like eating in here? And, he's basically like, yeah. And then he looks around and he goes, I don't think I've ever been to this room. They went to somewhere more intimate. But those were real human moments that led to then that intimate conversation. Yes, Alfred was there in that sequence, but it was this. It led to this sequence that we're getting right here with the two of them. I love when writers take the time to portray this, because you got to believe for me that some people care about Bruce Wayne outside of the costume, and it can't be because all they see is the surface level playboy that he presents himself at. Jim Gordon's interactions with Bruce are more depth-filled. You get why Gordon's friends with Bruce Wayne. Julie Madison's interactions here, you get why she'd start falling for the guy. Yep. And why he would start falling for her. There's a tete-a-tete and an exchange there. These sequences are drastically important in order for us to understand more of how Bruce is able to interact with the world at all and actually have any friends. I really, really enjoyed this. This is good stuff.
Well, one of the things I love about this whole sequence, one, everything you're saying about this great dialogue, this great banter between the two of them. But I do love, again, the art team taking their time with the backgrounds. The safari room, that she first finds, like, wow, all these guns must be a safari kick or something. And then, showing the one scene that has all the medical journals with a bunch of dust on them. Yeah. We know it's from the father. Then going on into, just the vastness of the house. And again, I love later on the story, the safari kick is going to come into play. Uh-huh. And again, this was great foreshadowing for that sequence to come down the pipe later on. And I loved how the art team took their time with that, even to the putting the detail in the kitchen where they finally end up hanging out. And like you, I had that same flashback to the 89 Keaton movie, that exact same sequence. And even going to the recent Flash movie where Bruce and the Flashes are in the kitchen and they're talking about the multiverse and the spaghetti and all that. That same kind of sequence had that same kind of vibe to it. So I love the detail that they put into just these couple pages, just so it could further pull us into this universe.
Yeah. It's really, really good stuff. When she parts and, basically tells him, kind of stay away from live wires and any kind of stuff like that get hurt. He's like, agreed. And then he's looking at the paper, though I doubt that's possible.
Yep.
Leading him back into the bat shed. Again, with all those windows, I've got questions. Like, he's got these shades up and dude is like working in his lab. I don't know, man. Julie Madison starts wandering around my property freely. I'm drawing some shades.
It's time for the cave.
I'm drawing bat shades. I am drawing down bat shades at that moment. But it was, I just love that I became fascinated by this world. I do like that the bat suit's in a vault. So
that way, if anybody does break in or walk in, he can always. These are just chemical. He's a science geek.
Yeah.
So the true, deeply incriminating evidence is locked in a vault. So that's good.
which is something that's very, very well known by Jim Gordon, because Jim Gordon's trying to rally him earlier on. So actually, everything you're saying, it does work in the context of this world, the way that this is set up. If they came across, even Jim Gordon in passing conversation would go, "Oh, Bruce has always had that interest. You know, it's one of the things I'm always trying to pull out from him and hope that, you know, he'd help out the police force a little bit more because he's a very, very smart man." And I really like that we saw that establishment from Jim Gordon earlier. So the suit being in the vault, taking the joking out of it, actually really works for me, because that's the way to make sure that, like, somebody accidentally comes across this. Good luck trying to get at the bat suit. It's something that I really enjoyed. When he fishes that open, now that's not the same bat suit that was burned before, right? Is that a new one, or did he fix it?
I don't know. I'm assuming he's got multiple suits in there.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's, the other suit was destroyed.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want any evidence. Take what, use what you can and then destroy the rest and have a backup suits. Because there's no scorch marks or anything like that on the suit.
Yeah. That's something that was, I really, really enjoyed that piece. For Jim Gordon, that's one of the things that I really like about this series. The idea that publicly, everyone's looking for a scapegoat. You know what I mean? So that's why I put Jim Gordon on notice to clean this mess up. So it's like, I'll dump down like Jim Gordon hasn't done his job, and which has been a common thing. It was even when the guy came back later and said, "Are you doing this looking for a scapegoat?" That is the kind of world that you're dealing with. And that part I really liked, because I felt like that would be the case. And the way the media, whether it's radio or newspaper, is addressing you really influences the public. Because this is an era where the news is pretty much gospel, right? And it's really your one major form for interacting with situations. It's a very, very different and unique time because people aren't really personalities during this time. Interviews are straight up interviews, and news is pretty much reporting facts, and you're left to make your own decisions on it. So it's a very, very different era of interaction with the media. I really liked how it was used in this. Sorry.
Oh, God, yeah. 100% love that. And again, it's everything you're saying. Yeah, back then, reporters were presenting factual information, not their personal opinions. Occasionally, you had some of the articles that were, the editor's comments, and some of them were the person's personal, spin on it, or their opinion on the situation. They give their analysis of it. But as a general rule, and that was something that, back then you listened to the radio for the facts. Or when you went to the movies, they had those newsreels that were popping up, in between the movies, or before and after the movies. It's interesting nowadays, with how much we have instant access to all types of information, true or false, it's out there. Back then you had your primary source, and politicians are politicians, no matter what era they are. We're seeing the mayor here. He's already trying to find his scapegoat, Jim Gordon. The warden is trying to find his scapegoat, Jim Gordon. He's trying to get he's got his political, aspirations that he wants to go with. So it's kind of neat seeing how different and how similar it is to the current society. Where currently we've got multimedia out there, all types of information, and that's the first place people look for their information. Here, you've got your newspapers, you've got your radio, and you got the movie pictures sometimes, but not everyday person could always afford the movies. Everybody had a radio in there, almost everybody. And so you have that news information that was going out there. It's again, I love the fact that this creative team took the time to research this time period, to understand this time period. They very easily could have taken the way we look at things currently and just said it in the past. And they could have gotten away with it. It still would have been a great story, but they took their time to make sure this is how things played out with us.
They released a Batman VR game, part of the Arkham series recently, which has gotten rave reviews on the MetaQuest VR headset. It was an exclusive made for VR. As I'm watching this, I'm paging my way through all of this. It's whether they turned it into a game or not, or anything like that, or turned it into a film or whatever, with this. It's not that. It's the idea that I'm so entrenched in the world that I feel like I'm already moving through it because of how the story's doing it. So you start imagining other possibilities. And that's probably one of the most sincere compliments I give this. like when the car's returned and he's like sitting there like, yeah, your car's been returned. And Batman, because he got, like, nobody's there. Probably because you're right. It's probably Batman. And dude is an expert at dealing with the shadows. and I really loved the whole swinging sequence that we got to see with him in that particular piece. And it leads to, we're actually going to wrap up kind of cliffhanger-ish at where we're left with this particular sequence as we've got some of the thugs basically getting ready to take down a vehicle that they have basically blockaded off on a bridge and bringing Batman on the scene. With Johnny the Whip, right?
Yep.
And that's really kind of where we're going to, I think this will be the stopping point for right now. We'll leave off with Johnny the Whip right here and finish the rest next episode. But for a first half of this, my gosh, what a great series. Just such a gorgeous series. Anything you want to say about this before we kind of wrap up that we haven't for this part?
Well, other than if you haven't picked this up, pick it up. Do yourself a favor. This is an absolutely brilliant story. Beautiful artwork, just a well done. This is just an absolute dream. This is if someone's looking for, if you got a friend who's into the comic book genre, but they don't really read comics, this is one that, I would put in their hand. Like I know you a lot of times will give books to some of our friends who don't actually read comics.
Yeah.
This I 100% would put in their hands because, again, this is a great Batman story, and it's a really cool creation in a different period. So, if you got any friends who are fans of the World War I, World War II era, who also happen to like Batman, put this in their hands.
I gave out a couple of DC Marvel omnibuses at Christmas this year, just because I grabbed two of them because you get them at the DCBS 50% off price, and I got a couple of my friends where their birthday and Christmas is back to back. So, and to your point, they're not regular readers, but that type of thing, especially the first one, it had a lot of the books, those treasury editions and stuff like that from our childhood were in that. So it was kind of a good thing. This is one, here's what I hope for this one. You were mentioning sequels earlier. I'm hoping this does lend to a sequel, and I hope it's the same art team. And the reason for that is I would love this to be an absolute. I don't think we're going to get an absolute out of the 3 prestige format issues of this, but I would love if there's a couple of stories and it eventually leads to an absolute just because of the artwork. Because we're ending off this page with Johnny the Whip, right? And that's where we'll kind of wrap up. But that, I would love that, to see that, flip that open in an absolute with that oversized page. It's just gorgeous artwork. This is really a strong art team. And there's so much about this that I would like to see in a larger format. I shout out absolutes a lot on this show because it is absolutely my favorite format that DC publishes. Because of the fact that there's just it feels very prestige in what it does, and it's the oversized pages and just the quality of the workmanship of the book itself. There's something special, and they always there has not been an absolute yet that I've got, I think, all of them. And there hasn't been an absolute yet that I've gotten that has not felt worthy of being an absolute. So they've made some really strong choices. This, if there is a follow-up story, could wind up being a really nice absolute.
Yes, all big time. Everything you're saying, I'm like, yes, I agree. I would love to see this absolute format, oversized, just take your time with it and enjoy it.
All right, well, we will wrap this up next week.
We are Crystal Men from Mercury. We have no quarrel with you.
I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. RagingBullets@gmail.com is our email address. You prefer to contact us that way. RagingBullets.com is our show website. That's where we put all of our show release information and news and updates on what's going on with the podcast. That feeds into X/Twitter and our Facebook fan page. We are proud to be part of a great Facebook group community, and that's a great way if you want to interact with the episodes, comments, thoughts, even suggestions on future show topics. This was a suggestion from one of our listeners. So please, if there's something that you want to see from us, go ahead and post it out in that Facebook group. People are posting news and articles, and feel free to shout out blogs, news, anything you see that you're like, hey, let's talk about this. Feel free to throw it up there. I look there first. And that's really just because of the quality people that are there. I'm just proud to be part of, that community, and thank everyone there who continues to post information for us up there on that page. The About Us section of our show websites, where you can figure out how to connect with Jim and myself. Bi-weekly, you'll hear me on Is It Jaws with Paul Spataro, who's made me a co-host over there. We do film reviews, so if you enjoy film reviews at all and would like to hear more of me, I know you get a lot of me every month, but it's really a fun podcast, and we always have some great guests on there, and really it's one of my favorite things to do outside of Raging Bullets, so please check us out over there. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what's going on over at our friends at DCBService.com?
We have Batman Beyond, the White Knight Deluxe Edition hardcover, 50% off, $24.99, and Batman Full Moon hardcover, 50% off, only $14.99. Thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, we have our deals of the week. DC's Finest, Supergirl, The Girl of Steel trade paperback, $39.99 regularly, 55% off, only $17.99. Spawn, Salmon, Twitch Origins, hardcover book 2, $29.99 regularly, 50% off, only $14.99. Spy Cross Family, graphic novel, volume 13, $11.99 regularly, 40% off, only $7.19. Swamp Thing by Mark Millar and Phil Hester, $125 regularly, 50% off, only $62.50. And of course, 2 different versions of X-Men: The Road to Onslaught Omnibus hardcover, $125 regularly, 46% off, only $67.50. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Be sure to check out InStockTrades.com deals of the week. And our next episode, we're going to be back wrapping up our conversation on the Batman First Night, and to announce what's coming after that, we're going to be doing something that's likely going to be a 4-parter, Marvel Superhero Secret Wars. So if you want to start reading that in preparation for it, we're going to do all 12 issues and really tackle that series, because it's been years. Jim and I were actually just talking about this before, talking about what comes next. It's been years since I've read that series. It's been years, Jim, you were mentioning, since you've read that series. I think there's going to be a lot to discuss. So we're looking forward to that one in 2 weeks. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
All right, you guys. Are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging Bullets time is here. We talk about what we hold dear. Comic books and TV shows. Superheroes and their clothes. Justice League and so much more. I just love Green Lantern Corps. We talk about the books we've read with spoilers straight ahead.
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show.
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it. What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't mean anything by that.
I think
Jim,
I don't know.
how long do you want the song to go?
Look, it's